NitPix.
13 Reasons Why came out 7 months ago. It has themes of suicide, rape, and mental health. It's now pretty irrelevant and very difficult to criticize constructively. So why am I making this video? Well, because one of my subs told me to, and I always do what my subs tell me to. NitPix got your back, bro. Don't even stress. The core of the issue with 13 Reasons Why is that it focuses so much on forwarding a political and social agenda that it sacrifices having likable, interesting characters that exist in a real, tangible world. As a result of this, it's difficult to be engaged by the show, and it feels less like an unfolding story and more of an experience of moral battery. So in this video, I'll be picking apart everything that worked to the show's detriment and talking about the negative implications that make 13 Reasons Why harmful to the very audience it pretends to protect. But I'm not doing it in 13 parts. That's just a bit gimmicky. I mean, I thought about it, but I'll probably just do it in 3. The show mostly takes place at Liberty High School. This is a standard American teenage drama high school. You've got your jocks, the edgy art students, and the nerds.
It's like asking Han Solo how is space.
Wow, you're an actual nerd, aren't you?
Oh, he knows who Han Solo is. What an obscure sci-fi reference that only a nerd would know. You've got basketball, cheerleaders, and school dances. So just take your standard high school comedy romp and desaturate the colours a bit, because this show is dark. The focus of the narrative is on Hannah Baker, a student who committed suicide shortly before the start of the series. Before her death, she recorded 13 tapes directed towards people who she believed helped contribute to her eventual suicide. Why tapes, I hear you demand aggressively at the screen? Because tapes are retro, and this show needs to romanticize and stylize every aspect of this girl's suicide. During the 13 episodes, the tapes are with the protagonist of the show, Clay Jensen, Hannah's unrequited love and an all-out great guy, who isn't actually guilty of doing any harm to Hannah, but we're made to think he is for a narrative hook. We watch Clay's miserable descent as he tries desperately to carve out some form of hopeless vigilante justice, and by that, I mean cycling around feeling sad, going up to people and vaguely confronting them about what he heard on the tapes, and those people saying, "You're weird, Clay, no, I didn't do anything, Hannah was lying." The tapes detail Hannah having one of her personal poems published in the school magazine without her permission, being stalked by a student who took illicit pictures of her and then publishing them around the school, and witnessing a friend being raped and then subsequently being raped herself by one of her classmates. The show attempts to deal with serious and complicated issues, but when the backdrop to these concepts are set in a generic high school environment, it's hard to take it seriously. Despite the show being a drama and being very dialogue heavy, the characters remain undeveloped and stereotypical all the way through. As these tapes provide insight into the mind of Hannah Baker, you'd think her character would be complicated and layered, and might give the audience a rare look into the dark thoughts and motivations underlying someone struggling with depression. I thought that too, dear listener. Oh, how foolish I was. Unfortunately, her character goals seem to revolve entirely around which boys are giving her attention and her social standing at high school. Oh no, she fell out with her friend group. The girl she knew for a few days turned out to be not that nice. But if only the sweet, charming, goofy Clay Jensen would ask her out, then she wouldn't be depressed anymore. This show framed itself as something progressive, but with her constant overanalyzing and overreacting to every single high school interaction, how is Hannah any different from some scribbled out Disney Channel character? Well, apart from the suicide and rape, they didn't quite get round to that in Hannah Montana. But that doesn't make it a better show. All it does is give it a posy, make-pretend sense of importance. When every character is written in such an inhuman way, the feeling of realism that's needed to start an engaging dialogue about these things isn't present. Hitting those all-important plot points that drive a social message take priority over well-written dialogue or character motivations. This guy Zach seems like a well-liked and kind guy, but he needs to do something mean to Hannah to belong on the tapes, so he just does a strange 180 like a faulty android, completely changing his character mid-scene.
You were the Valentine I was hoping for, but I like you for so much more than that.
Zach, walk away.
Well, fuck you.
But the show never tries to get to the core of why these characters do these bad things. Why did this guy stalk and take pictures of Hannah? I don't know, because it wasn't explained. If he's just a weird Jesse Eisenberg lookalike, no one will question it. The main antagonist of the show, Bryce, rapes two 17-year-old girls, but they don't provide any motivation or insight into what drives these acts or makes him think that they're okay or acceptable. Instead, the explanation is that he's just a rich jock, and all rich people are psychopaths looking down at the peasants. And this guy, Justin, is just a dick to everyone all the way through. But it's because he's a poor guy and he has a rough family life. Turns out the bully was being bullied all along. Who'd have thought? These lazy, undeveloped backstories are like something you'd find in a young adult novel. Oh, I've made a huge mistake. None of these characters feel human. Nothing they do makes any sense. Like, remember this gem?
Fuck you.
Well, after getting rejected, he gets revenge on Hannah by stealing her bunny pictures from her little compliment sack. What? Why? I thought you liked her. Hannah responds to this by pouring out her deepest and most personal thoughts and feelings into a letter and leaves it in the sack for Zach to nab. Why is Hannah naively sharing this with someone who's antagonizing her? And of course, his response to finding the note is, what? And then Hannah's just,
Why me, Zach? Why me?
Why you? How can this show take any credit for dealing with the complexity of human psychology if this is how it portrays conflict? Everyone who's on the tapes is an unforgivable, unlikable bad person without any redeemable qualities. They meet up like comic book villains and discuss how they're going to
end that little bastard once and for all.
While everyone you're supposed to like is always in the right and are completely morally untouchable. Every adult in the show lacks any form of cognitive ability to understand what's going on with their children. Even when they come home from school covered in bruises and have feverish, sweaty nightmares, they still do nothing. This gives the message that young people struggling with mental health can't speak to their parents or counsellors because they just won't get it. When in reality, school counsellors are much more likely to help students struggling with depression than this garbage show. If this was just a dumb teenage TV drama, I could accept it for what it is, and I probably wouldn't have made this video, as I'm certainly not in the demographic this show is aimed at, and to its credit it does have some good performances, scene transitions, cinematography and good use of music. But the sad irony of this show is that it may have done the exact opposite of what it was trying to preach, as 13 Reasons Why could cause harm to many people who are currently struggling with suicidal thoughts. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention have recommendations for safe portrayal of suicide, and 13 Reasons Why didn't follow a staggering number of them. According to the Foundation, the risk of copycat suicide following the coverage or portrayal of suicide increases when the story explicitly describes the suicide method, uses dramatic/graphic headlines or images, and repeated/extensive coverage sensationalizes or glamorizes a death. They suggest avoiding including photos/videos of the location or method of death, grieving family, friends, memorials, or funerals, along with avoiding the description of suicide notes or describing a suicide as inexplicable or without warning. On top of this, it recommends that the media refers to research findings that mental disorders and/or substance abuse have been found in 90% of people who have died by suicide. And the Foundation specifically states that reducing a suicide's cause to a singular cause, such as bullying, leaves the public with an overly simplistic and misleading understanding of suicide. And in case anyone doubts the validity of these guidelines, here's a list of institutions that support the publication of them. The writers of the show suggest that getting help is futile in Hannah's inability to get help from a counsellor or peers and present it as if she didn't have any other option. Not once do they show anyone helping or treating Hannah, and the audience is made to think that Hannah has to go through this on her own. Adding to this, the idea that all Hannah needed was a sweet guy like Clay Jensen to fall in love with her is reductive, and the show implies that she could only be finally understood in death. In conclusion, 13 Reasons Why is an aesthetically pleasing, uncomplicated high school drama that follows the story of how a girl uses her suicide to get revenge on the people she blames for it, and how through this she becomes vindicated, almost presenting suicide as a weapon. This, at the core of it, is a very bad agenda to push, a potentially harmful message to its demographic of impressionable high school students. Hannah's journey is a superficial one, showing graphic imagery and using hard-hitting vocabulary, but it never delves into how horrifying the dark mind state of depression is and how it can truly affect an individual on a psychological basis. It provides no real help to those struggling with mental health. I'm not saying that we can't have media that tackle these issues. It's essential to talk about them, but we need to understand how serious and nuanced these subjects are and how they must be handled with maturity. But what this Netflix original does, ultimately, is take something that should be mature and frames it in a simplistic black and white way, and that is the insult of 13 Reasons Why. If you're struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts, I've put a link where you can get help in the description. Thanks so much for watching this video. Let me know what you thought of this show in the comments. Subscribe for more content just like this. You can also let me know whatever shit shows you want me to review for you. I'm like a hitman. I'm like a YouTube hitman. Tell me which shows you want me to put on your list and I'll take them out. Bang bang.